Hello and welcome to another Looney Tunes review video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to follow my journey to review all 1000 classic Looney Tunes shorts and give this video a like as well. So this is a review for Bosko's Picture Show, released in 1933. It's the 64th in the series and it's directed by Hugh Harman. You can find this beautiful restoration on the Looney Tunes Golden Collection Volume 6 DVD set. I'm using an upscale which approximates its look to HD, so I hope you like the results on this video. Sadly, I can't show you the full thing due to copyright on YouTube, but basically, Bosko hosts a night at the cinema where we see newsreels and various short films all throughout. So, not really much to it, but I'll discuss that further as we get along the review. So first up, you're going to see a re-edit of the original audio commentary that my good friend Blue Genocide has done for me, and he's edited this whole review as well. And then after that, you'll hear some new thoughts from me, and plus some thoughts from my good friend SC Peter. So grab some popcorn and enjoy. So this one, lots of things to talk about, so let's get right into it. It is a very unusual Bosko short. In fact, it's one of my favourites out of all of them because of how different it is. I think Bosko worked the best when it was put in different situations than the usual formula shorts. So this also gives you a good idea as to what theatres were like way back when. This is during the Depression in 1933, and Bosko is now going to sing We're in the Money, which, if you're well versed in Looney Tunes, you'll know that it's a song that's used over and over in many shorts. And I'll tell you, this got a great lot of laughs out of me, and that's probably why I like this one the best. It's less about Bosko and more but just about silly comedy. In fact, this is probably the closest to a later day Looney Tunes short during this period of time. It really is. And this appearance of Hitler, from my understanding, it's a second appearance. There was one appearance in a short called Cubby's World Flight, but in this case, it's a first appearance in a Looney Tunes short. I want you to listen to this audio clip and tell me what you think Bosko has said.
The dirty fox!
So apparently that line was supposed to be "You dirty fox," but people seem to think that Bosko just dropped the F-bomb right there. I mean, what do you think? It definitely sounds like the F-bomb, but I doubt that it was intentional. I think it was just a poor reading or just one of those little accidents that happened, because this was during the time when there was the Hays Code was put into place, and if they heard a swear word, they would have caught it out. Unless they somehow slipped it in afterwards. I don't know. I mean, I know that with Harman and Ising not doing any more cartoons for Leon Schlesinger, it's even been said that they just slipped that in as an FU to Leon Schlesinger, but I don't know. I don't think it's the case, but no, let me know what you think below. And of course, this is the last appearance of Honey. And this is certainly not the last appearance of Marx Brothers. I told you they'll reappear. A very typical Dirty Dalton, the cur. Doesn't even have bicycle wheels. He just... And that's where that infamous line came from, by the way, where he just points to the villain and says, "You dirty fucks." Or the dirty so-and-so. What a bike. That's just crazy. Like I said, this one really does remind me of the later Looney Tunes, and this is one of my favourite Boskos, I would have to say. I really like this one, and I guess if they had continued making shorts for Leon Schlesinger, maybe they would have gotten better and better, and who knows, maybe there's an alternate universe somewhere where they stayed put. But the last Bosko, hooray! I'm going to pour myself a glass of wine and celebrate. So those are my original thoughts. So I've actually got plenty of new ones here. So let's get the reused animation out of the way, because I know Blue Genocide loves to edit these parts. But you've got the animation of dogs racing that comes from Bosko's Dog Race, and the whole boxcar going out of control that comes from Bosko and Bruno. But of course, this new animation on the front. I mean, Bosko short using animation from earlier shorts? Get out of here. That never happens. Now, I've actually looked into this short a lot more, and there's definitely a lot more information than I initially realized. But, it was one of those learning things from between when I was starting out doing the commentaries to now, where I look into things a little bit more deeply. So, as I would have mentioned, this is the last Bosko short done for Schlesinger. Basically, Hugh Harman and Rudolf Ising had a falling out with Leon Schlesinger over money, so they ended up producing shorts afterwards for MGM because Schlesinger basically hired Harman and Ising to produce shorts for him, and of course, now that the deal fell through, Schlesinger would end up opening up his own studio, and then of course Buddy would come around and the further Merry Melodies. So while Schlesinger had the Merry Melodies name, hence why they continued doing those shorts at Schlesinger Studios proper for Warner Brothers, the Harman and Ising team actually kept the Bosko name and the character, having learned what happened to Walt Disney with Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. So they would go to MGM, they would make 2 further shorts with this original design. In fact, one even serves as a sequel for Riding Bosko, somewhat. But then after that, they would redesign him to become, I guess, a more realistic, quote unquote, black boy. But yeah, the design definitely leaves a bit to be desired. I mean, thumbs up for them actually making a character of color and trying to do something with that. But yeah, the design definitely leaves a lot to be desired. So they made 7 more shorts with the character before he was effectively retired, because there was all sorts of things that happened over at the MGM studio, which I won't get into here regarding Harman and Ising, but at least this all led to the wonderful Peace on Earth short, which, if you haven't seen, it is truly, I consider that one of their masterpieces anyway. So that's that. And funnily enough, they would also do the Happy Harmonies, since they couldn't do Merry Melodies over at MGM, so there we go. Plenty of references here in this short, and look, this is one of those shorts which is a time capsule where it's all about the movie-going experience of the early 30s, so a lot of this stuff would go over a lot of people's heads today, but there's definitely a lot of references here. I mean, we'll go through some of the obvious ones. I mean, the lion burping, that's a clear parody of the MGM lion, who was named Leo the Lion. That was MGM's mascot. And then you got the 4 Marx Brothers, so they appear twice in this short. And they appeared firstly in Bosko's Nightmare, and of course they appear here. And they even sing in the second part, and for some reason Harpo's singing, which is supposed to be silent, but anyway, that's alright. We'll deal with that. And Laurel and Hardy is referenced here as Horrell and Lardy, which Lardy sounds quite apt, but anyway, that's who they're parodying here, and I can't say that they got the comedy timing right in this segment. They gave it a good try, but yeah, I've seen it done better elsewhere. I mean, of course, the originals are the best, but in terms of parodies, yeah, it was definitely done better in other shorts, but it's okay. It's not that bad anyway. So, a lot of the other references are going to be a lot more vaguer. So, Out of Tone News. Now, people, and I would have mentioned this in quite a few reviews already, but for those who've come onto this channel for the first time with this one somehow, I don't know, it's still a relatively obscure short, but basically Out of Tone News is a reference to Movie Tone News. See, newsreels were essentially the equivalent of your news channels today. So, back then it'd be pretty much newspapers and newsreels. And of course you would have radio too, but there was no TV, and there was none of these 24-hour news channels that we had. So a lot of people got the news from the Movie Tone News. Now their slogan here is see all, hear all, know all, and here of course it's smells all, which is pretty funny. And I like the added touch in that bit, by the way. You can see the film reel very briefly. I thought that was a really nice touch, because that's what would have most likely happened a lot at these theatre showings. And at the end, of course, instead of it speaks for itself, it squeaks for itself while we see a sausage being made. So, yeah, that's all comes from the Movie Tone News. And you got Jack Dempsey, and that's a play on Jack Dempsey, who was a boxer. By this point, he was getting on. He actually had retired and was only doing exhibition matches up until around 1931 or so. He actually did do a comeback in 1940 and won, and he was at the age of 45 then. So here, of course, they're just playing on the fact that he's still boxing at his older age, even though I guess, he was still fit at the time and all of that. So that's what that's referencing. One of the weirder references, though, is the whole lady at the beach, and I could barely even hear the name referenced here, but it's Peggy Hopkins Joyce. And I looked her up because I had no idea who that was either, but she had a very interesting life. But I'm going to keep this brief because I could go on and on about what her history was, but essentially she was an actress and a dancer for the Siegfried Froley's Dancer, and she was known more for her very flamboyant and lavish lifestyle, and she notably married and divorced quite a few wealthy men, and she was more memorable for that versus her other career. But weirdly enough, in this scene, it doesn't really look like her. I'm trying to work out what this specifically is referencing. So if you know why they did this particular scene, where of course they're playing on the fact, California weather can be unpredictable, that kind of thing, but what do they mean by this? I don't really know, but that's what the actual name is. So there you go. Now we actually get an early appearance of Hitler, and it's one of the very earliest appearances in an animated film. I believe there was another film that slightly predates this one, but people watching this should know at the time, this is before World War II, and Hitler was seen basically as another leader of a country. I'm not sure how well known his anti-Jewish sentiments were at the time, because I know a lot about World War II history and such, but there are a few things, of course, I don't particularly know. So you can definitely let me know in the comments, explaining whether his anti-Jewish sentiments were known at that time, at least on the international stage anyway. I know that there was a mass exodus of Jewish people from Germany around this time, but yeah, if you can let me know, that would be great. I would definitely like to know that. But I'm trying to work out what this particular scene is referring to, because the other person is Jimmy Durante, who was known as, well, the Schnozzola. And funnily enough, schnoz is a Yiddish word for big nose, right? So looking at this, you think, oh, is Hitler chasing after a Jewish person? When in fact, no. Jimmy Durante, he was born in America, in New York specifically, but his background was Italian, and he was actually a Roman Catholic and was deeply religious one at that. And, later on, Hitler would ally himself with Mussolini, who was from Italy, as part of the Axis powers. So I don't know, is this just a random bit, or is this referring to one of Durante's movies where they just happen to put Hitler in it? I don't know. Yeah, definitely let me know in the comments below. Weird scene, but hey, it's notable for being one of the earliest appearances of Hitler, and it's actually, I guess, the first time you see him in a Warner Brothers cartoon. And we will see him plenty further on once we get into World War II, of course. But yeah, it's interesting to see a pre-World War II Hitler referenced. So, looking at this short, and I love the moustache villain, and he's got that French accent, and he's such a stereotypical villain, and that type of character would be in so many silent films and vaudeville, and yeah, they've clearly played it up here. I would imagine by this point that this sort of character would have actually been seen as a stereotype, even in 1933, but in any case. Now, there are some things in here which you just know that once the Hays Code fully came into being, when it came to scrutinizing movies for quote unquote offensive content, there were some things in here which clearly would have been struck down by the Hays Code. And you can see right in the beginning there was a film poster that says "Love in the Raw." Granted, I was only barely able to see that, so that could have easily been missed. But then later on, you see the title, He Done Her Dirt and How. I mean, that should be self-explanatory, right? And shows that cartoons weren't exactly made for kids. It was actually made for adults. How about that, right? Adult cartoons. Weird, huh? And dirtier still, you hear a toilet flush earlier, and that would have been a no-no later on for the Hays Code. So there's that as well. And yes, there's also the alleged swearing, which I would have mentioned in the commentary, and since I recorded that, look, the general accepted word is "you dirty box, but the delivery just sounds like that other word. But I think the general accepted answer is you dirty fox, but you know what? A lot of people don't seem to accept that now, and that's okay. Honestly, it's funnier with the other words, when we're hearing such an early film with that word being said. But anyway, you can let me know if you believe it's fox or that other word. Okay. So, my good friend S.C. McPeter, he's recorded a bit on this short. He wanted to be involved in at least another Bosko short. He was with me on writing Bosko, and now he's on this one. So, yeah, take it away, SC.
Hey everybody. Well, Bosko's Picture Show, huh? The last of the Warner Brother Bosko cartoons. Come a long way since sinking the bathtub, huh? It's really funny, because the final slate of Boskos in 1933 are actually pretty good and show some great development in harmonizing's cartoons. Well, except that one dud, Bosko the Sheep Herder. As someone who does work in a very old movie theater, nearing 100, I should say that the presentation that Bosko gives is pretty accurate to the time. Well, especially since it was contempt with how people ran their theaters at that point. By this point, they realized that by impersonating famous Hollywood actors, like you've seen the Marx Brothers and Honey wears a dress similar to Mae West, not all of them quite work. I don't think the Marx Brothers bit is too funny in this, but it is nice just seeing them try, and they are improving their gag work. But then we get on to the movie. She Done Her Wrong and How. And, of course, this was actually not an MGM picture, but a Paramount. Then we get on to the main feature where Bosko is still playing the organ along. I believe in some early sound pictures, they actually kept the opening silent so the organ wouldn't be put out of use and the organ would play some fanfare before the movie began. So Bosko enters the picture and, oddly enough, saves it by ripping the screen. It just sort of ends there, but it's funny. It isn't perfect, but it is a funny ending, and the harmonizing crew were really interested in outdoing themselves from earlier takes. And the harmonizing Boskos are a pretty good slate if you can enjoy them for what they are. And I hope you do like them, because if you don't compare them to what had come before and compare them to what was around at their time, they aren't the worst cartoons ever made. Well, I guess as Bosko would say at this point, that's all, folks!
Thank you, SC. Look, this one's a nice, fun little time capsule of what the cinema experience would have been like back in the early 30s. I mean, you had the Great Depression, so people needed an escape from the outside world. Hence, you see the sing-along in the beginning, and just the overall general entertainment, escapist value that people were craving at the time. So, and weirdly enough, this is sort of like escapist squared. You know, they'll go into the theater to escape the realities of the world, and then they're watching a short which showcases an escape from the world. So, yeah. In any case, this one's very, very entertaining. It's one of the better Boskos. And look, there's no story in this one, but much like the equally great Bosko in person, there's really doesn't need to be. And in the end, this is just a whole lot of fun. And yeah, one of the best Bosko shorts. Probably my favorite. It'd be one of them anyway. But yeah, 7.5 out of 10. It's a good fun. And yeah, lots of nice references in here, and of course the infamous F word. So that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care.